What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com. And tonight I am joined by none other than Prime Conor, because we got to bring on Prime Conor after a Super Bowl 57 win. Before we get into anything, of course, Conor, I have to ask how you're doing, because that's a nice thing to do when I have a guest on the show.
We talk every day. You know how I'm doing.
We just won the Super Bowl.
No, I don't think there's been a day where we haven't talked since you got back from basic training. So that seems like a dumb question.
Well, it's the nice thing to do. It's a courteous thing to do.
I think you need to go back to broadcasting school.
I never went to broadcasting school. That's the thing.
I can tell.
Okay,
this isn't how you conduct professional interviews, Joshua. You're never going to be a late night TV host like this.
I don't want to be a late night TV host.
Well, you probably could if you wanted to. They did those.
I don't know why you have this. You're making this desperate connection between me and like Jimmy Fallon.
I never made a connection between you and Jimmy Fallon.
And you talked about me like being on Saturday Night Live and all this stuff, and I don't know where that came from.
I mean, you're saying these things very out of context. They were funny in context, but you're just separating them from like independent discussions and bringing them here. And of course, it's not going to make any sense out here. But
yeah, I'm sure people already stopped listening. So let's get into it. So I'm going to call this episode "What Did We Learn?" And essentially, Conor, I am going to go over, a list of bullet points from Super Bowl 57. And we're just going to talk about what we learned after Super Bowl 57, such as, legacies being impacted, what we learned just from the Eagles and the Chiefs facing each other after a week of discourse about the game, or 2 weeks, I should say. But, Conor, I'm going to start with the first one, and I think this one's appropriate. Andy Reid. What did we learn about Andy Reid from Super Bowl 57?
I mean, I don't know if we really learned too much, because it was like it was like your usual good Andy Reid game, like kind of what I was expecting. I knew that he was going to come out and have a good game plan because, like, obviously it's the Super Bowl, right? But also I felt like, well, the entire reason I picked the Chiefs is I'm like, Andy Reid's not going to lose to the Eagles, and I didn't trust Nick Sirianni to win a Super Bowl either. So, like, coaching to me was going to be the X factor in this game, and I think you could argue that it was. But, Andy Reid's undefeated against the Eagles. Jeffrey Lurie was the owner, and I think Howie Roseman was the one that fired him when he got fired. So, I didn't think he was going to lose to his former team, and, obviously it's the Super Bowl, but just that added storyline, I think, elevates his level to a little bit. And, I mean, I'll say I learned this. This was the best first 15 I've ever seen him have. Like, the offense came out and looked really, really sharp. And usually I get really annoyed with Andy's first 15 because there's a lot of just halfback dives and just drive killers like that. But this was probably the best first 15 I've ever seen out of Andy.
Yeah, and I would say that even the drives after that weren't necessarily bad, but it just felt like we didn't get very much because the Chiefs they weren't being allowed to have the ball by the Eagles offense. They were just sucking up the clock and winning the time of possession. But I'll say that I think Andy Reid didn't need this Super Bowl win to be in the Hall of Fame or for us to consider him a great coach. Like, he was already all those things. He's already one of the greatest coaches of all time. But I think him getting this second Super Bowl win is just as important as the first one, because we had, that long history of Andy Reid choking away games, even back when he was the Eagles head coach, but the Chiefs head coach too. We had that long history of him just choking away games that he shouldn't have. And us getting the annual Andy Reid letdown. And then he won the first Super Bowl with Mahomes in 2019. And it's like, okay, yeah, Andy Reid's a great coach, but, it's Patrick Mahomes as well, kind of balancing out the Andy Reid deficiencies. And that's still true to this day, in my opinion. But Andy Reid now having 2 Super Bowls, it's like, all right, like this is the best, probably going to be one of the best QB coach duos of all time, no matter when it is over, because Andy Reid and Mahomes are just so good. And I think what we learned about Andy Reid in Super Bowl 57 is that he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. Not that we didn't know that before, but I mean, he's got 2 Super Bowls now. And like that was the thing that was always holding him back was not having the Super Bowl win. And now he's got 2 of them in 5 years.
Yeah, it definitely impacts his legacy in a major way because Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl as a head coach, and Mike McCarthy is kind of a punchline oftentimes. And people say that the Packers won that Super Bowl in spite of McCarthy rather than because of him. And just winning the second one really allows, like Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl, so just winning the second Super Bowl here really allows Andy Reid to separate himself from any of that. You can't say that Mahomes carried him to it because they've done it twice together, and his game plan was crucial to winning it. So, and I think another aspect that we've talked about on here before, because Andy Reid has been often criticized by us and often discussed, and one of my concerns with him, especially after 55, was did he win 54 just because Kyle Shanahan is a bigger choker than he is? And I think, there were plenty of opportunities to choke 57 away, and they never did. So I think that this is more important to Andy's legacy than the first one. Like, yeah, he got rid of the best head coach to never win a Super Bowl title last time, but this time it really elevated him to arguably your S tier of coaches. You think about your Parcells, your Belichick's, your Lombardis, your guys like that. And I think winning 2 allows Andy Reid to be in the conversation with guys like that.
Yeah, because there's so many coaches that have won Super Bowl under their belt. And not to say that it makes it any less of an accomplishment winning a Super Bowl, but you're talking about these other just random coaches. It's oh yeah, they have a Super Bowl. And Andy only has 1. And if Andy Reid only retired with 1, it kind of would have felt like a letdown just a little bit.
Well, with the one Super Bowl argument, you can sit there and say who was a better coach all time, Marty Schottenheimer or Barry Switzer. The answer is pretty obvious there, but one of them has a Super Bowl and the other doesn't.
Right. Yeah. So Andy Reid, I just having multiple now, and it's going to allow him to continue just stacking to his resume and racking up wins. And he could not win another Super Bowl after this and retire. And I think, you wouldn't feel like you were left wanting more, multiple Super Bowls. We're good with that. Not that we don't want to win the next 3, but
I just need one more. Obviously I want more, but I need one more.
For the dynasty talk, for sure.
Yeah, because fuck everyone who's calling 2 a dynasty. 2 is not a dynasty. If 2 is a dynasty, the Broncos had a dynasty, and they didn't. 2 is 3 or more. Or a dynasty is 3 or more, rather.
And I feel like the only thing kind of holding this up as a potential dynasty is that we went to 3, but I don't know.
Doesn't count.
And they just lost so badly in Super Bowl 55.
Well, to me, it doesn't matter if you lose in the Super Bowl or if you have the first overall draft pick. If you don't win the Super Bowl, you don't win a Super Bowl. Like Scottie Pippen said, it don't mean a thing if you ain't got that ring. So I really don't care that we lost a Super Bowl. I do because that hurt way worse than any of the other losses. But just in terms of arguing for a dynasty or anything, just only count the wins. If you want to play that game, the 90s Bills were a dynasty, which just sounds stupid.
Yeah, and one more note I'll add to Andy Reid and coaching a hell of a game against the Eagles is that, if he had lost this one, it would have been all right, so you got outcoached by Nick Sirianni. And far too often in Andy Reid's career, it's felt like he's gotten outcoached in big games by what feels like the inferior coach. But he went out there and he outcoached the inferior coach, in my opinion. And that's exactly what you expect out of him.
Well, the Eagles' game plan wasn't exactly creative.
No, and the Chiefs' defense just also didn't have a good day.
Yeah, I think with the Eagles,
I was honestly shocked Nick Sirianni punted on that 4th and 2 in the second half.
Yeah, the Eagles' game plan was simple yet effective. You can't really credit Sirianni for oh yeah, Sirianni and his aggressiveness, but if they had Doug Peterson, they probably won the Super Bowl, just being honest. But yeah, I don't know. Just power running and just basically having a rugby offense anytime it's within 4 yards. That's not exactly thrilling play calling. Like, he didn't have a corn dog play call or anything like that. He didn't call the Philly special. There's no jet chip wasp or anything like that. It was just lean forward, boys. Our quarterback can squat 600 pounds. He can pick this up. Like,
Yeah, and another thing I'll say is that we talked about this on like Discord after the game last night, and I know there's going to be discussions about banning the QB sneak this offseason. I don't agree with that, but I do think it's a little BS that even after forward progress is initially stopped, that Jalen Hurts is allowed like an extra 4 or 5 seconds to just try and get it anyway. That's what makes it so unstoppable.
yeah, you could probably just touch up the rule and say, like, once forward progress is halted, the play is over or something like that, just to make it a little easier on defenses. But banning it outright would just feel soft.
Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, one more thing. And then I promise we'll move on to the next subject. But how glorious is it that Andy Reid had killer clock management at the end to beat his former team?
That's a first.
I know.
Andy Reid clock management that wasn't an absolute disaster class. He used his timeouts effectively. Since when does he do that? Like, he's 64 and he's still evolving.
We remember what happened in Super Bowl 55, and he used his timeouts.
God. Yeah, let's call a timeout to give Brady more time to drive downfield. Oh, well, he was trying to get the ball back. The defense was terrible. Defense had no momentum going their way. Just an absolute waste. Like, he did call... Like, my biggest issue with Andy is just his willingness to, like, waste timeouts. And I remember there was a point in the game, which I'll give Sirianni credit here. The Eagles took a delay of game rather than using a timeout. And I don't know why people don't do that often, because to me, if I believe in my offense, an extra 5 yards is worth having a timeout that I might need on a game-winning drive late in the game. I might change my tune if like I'm in borderline field goal range or something like that. But for the most part, like, I don't think using timeouts there is great. And that's something I'd often get frustrated with Andy, is just burning a timeout for no reason in the third quarter. And I think he did burn a timeout in the third quarter, but it was to challenge that Dallas Goedert catch, which I would have challenged that too. So I don't blame him for that at all. So yeah, props to Andy for killer clock management.
For sure. I mean, I just remember Andy so many times he would like take a timeout like on a 2-point conversion, and it's like, well, how are you not, or why are you needing to take a timeout? And this is like, I remember against the Titans in the regular season the year when we won the Super Bowl, he took a timeout on a 2-point conversion when the Chiefs were on defense, and it's like you're gonna need that later. Like, I don't know, but wasn't an issue last night. Next up, what did we learn about Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 57?
I've been really hesitant to call him the GOAT or like even put him in those conversations, but like after that, what doesn't he have at this point? Because like the biggest knock that he had going into this was he kind of played like shit for the majority of 54, and like on paper he played like shit in 55, but like it really wasn't his fault. He was trying, but just like nothing went Kansas City's way that entire day. So that game kind of feels like a wash when evaluating his Super Bowl performances, but it's still a loss. And then he came in and like this was his legacy game. Like if he lost this game, I think his legacy would be viewed very differently. But I kind of felt like when Devontae Smith got the touchdown and then Jalen Hurts pushed in for the 2-point conversion, tie game, 5 minutes left in the Super Bowl, you're getting the ball. If there's ever a time to put together a legacy drive, it's now, Patrick. And he did. And to me, often when it comes to the Super Bowls, we like, at least I try and think of like a play Like, I associate different plays with different games. Everyone talks about the Santonio Holmes catch over the Cardinals. Obviously, the helmet catch, the Philly special, Malcolm Butler's interception, all these different plays. To me, the play in this game was the 20-yard scramble, where, like, on a bum ankle, the pocket collapses, there's nobody open down field, and Patrick just says, fuck it, and goes. And to me, that was probably, he's done more impressive stuff in his career, but that was probably his moment thus far in his career, just because that practically won the Super Bowl, that put us into field goal range, and picked up the first down, put us in field goal range, and the rest is history. So to me, if I had to pick a play from that game, it would be that one. And to me, Nick Bolton deserved MVP, but I think that scramble is what you could argue got Mahomes the MVP of this game.
I was going to say that him scrambling on that last drive in regulation was, I agree. I think that's the play that probably won him the MVP, especially because everything, with the ankle that was going on. And yeah, he got the ankle retaped, I'm sure, at halftime, and he got some drugs of some sort.
Oh, he 100% got a Toradol shot.
But the dude was still in pain, and he had a high ankle sprain, but he would do whatever it took to win. And not saying that other quarterbacks wouldn't do whatever it takes to win in that scenario, but I mean, Mahomes it's just different. And I felt like we talked about this before the Super Bowl happened, but I felt like if Mahomes lost this one, this would have been like his Tom Brady, Eli Manning loss. Like, yeah, Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. The Eagles are a good team, just like the Giants and Eli Manning were back then. But you have the better QB, you have the better coach, you had that better duo. You're more experienced in this game. This just would have felt like the Eli Manning loss, and you couldn't afford it. And you would have been 1-2 in Super Bowls. 2-1 is a hell of a lot better than 1-2, and that would have been a hard hole to dig yourself out of. And this gives Mahomes by far the most impressive 5-year start of any NFL player ever. I mean, 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 Super Bowl wins, Offensive Player of the Year, 2-time passing yards leader, 2-time touchdown leader, set the record for total yards in a season. Like, what hasn't the dude done? What more is there to prove? He has nothing left to prove as far as being the best quarterback in the league. And with Tom Brady now being retired, there's no current quarterback playing this game that has a resume that comes close to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has done more than Aaron Rodgers in his career in half the years.
I think it's been less than half.
It has. It's
probably closer to like a third.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really like the Brady Eli Manning comparison, because the Brady Eli Manning comparison is hilarious in the sense that the Patriots had steamrolled everyone at that point, and the Giants backed into the playoffs. Nobody thought the Giants could win, and then they did.
No, I get the semantics that you're pointing out. I'm just saying, Mahomes losing this one, he would have been losing to the worst quarterback and the worst team and the worst coach.
But I think the better comparison is Brett Favre, coincidentally also coached by Andy Reid. But, Brett Favre beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and I think he won like an MVP or 2, and he was just lighting up the league. And I think he was 28 going into his second Super Bowl. And like, it looked like Favre was unstoppable. It looked like Favre was going to put up a resume to challenge Montana. And then he went in and played Elway in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Elway won that one. And after Favre was heavily favored, and then Favre never got back there. And now nobody even puts Favre in the conversation for best ever. He's just a turnover machine. That's what he's mostly remembered for at this point. So that was one of my concerns, is because if you lose 2 Super Bowls and only win 1, that one doesn't matter. Like, you're going to get viewed as a choker who just got lucky one time. So he really needed this one. And especially with the fact that it was tied with 5 minutes left, and then he got the ball and went down and won the game. That is exactly what he needs for his legacy.
And again, the clock management was smart there. Both from Reid and Mahomes. I'm sure they both played a part in that. And Mahomes, going off on that run and then sliding down, and that helped take time off the clock. There was no scenario in which the Chiefs should have been giving the ball back to the Eagles after getting the ball with just over 5 minutes left. But yeah, this win is just really important for Mahomes' legacy, and it's just good that you got that second Super Bowl, because now with the second Super Bowl, Mahomes joins a list of just 12 other quarterbacks with multiple Super Bowls. Like, Mahomes is one of 13 players now with multiple Super Bowls. And at this point, it's not a question of if he goes to the Hall of Fame or if he's going to be viewed as an all-time quarterback. The question is just where he lands all time. And right now, he's on that chase for Tom Brady and his legacy. Do I think he'll catch him?
Yes.
I don't know, but here's the thing. If Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl next year, he will have 3 Super Bowls at his age 28 season, which Tom Brady also did. And then Tom Brady didn't win another Super Bowl for 10 years. So that means if Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl next year, now this is easier said than done. If he wins the Super Bowl next year, then any he wins in the next 10 years after that puts him at a better pace than Tom Brady.
Is that 12 quarterbacks with multiple Super Bowls, including guys like Jimmy and Henny?
I don't know. We're talking about guys that like played
starters.
Yeah.
Because that number seems interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I can link you the article.
I can probably name them.
I'm sure there's plenty of quarterbacks that were backups, because Henny. I can tell you, Henny was not on the list.
I love the stat that the quarterback, like since Brady retired, the active quarterbacks with the most rings are Mahomes and Jimmy Garoppolo tied at 2.
Yeah, and then if we're going with guys that actually played, there's really nobody. I mean, Rodgers and Wilson, but they got 1.
Rodgers might not even be there next year.
Yeah.
And Wilson plays like shit. Like, he sucks now, so who cares?
But Sean Payton's going to save him.
I feel like he's going to improve, but I don't know. That team
low bar
might compete for a wild card. Oh, and Stafford, I guess. But, like, who knows if he's going to play again?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That situation, that'll be one to watch.
Like,
Baker Mayfield would be smart to stick around there.
It's wild just to see how, like, little Super Bowls are, like, left now that, like, the Bradys and the Bens of the world are gone. But
yeah, and I know the media making dumb comparisons to Patrick Mahomes is never going to stop. I know that's what they do, but it feels like after this Super Bowl win for Mahomes, like any comparison now, it's beyond ridiculous. Like, I know Skip Bayless is still going to do it. Skip Bayless is still going to say X quarterback is better, but I just like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, like those guys are great, but none of them even have hardware of any sort.
Well, I mean, it's going to happen solely for it's kind of like how LeBron's been the best player or he's not really anymore, but was the best player in the NBA for a long time. But there's constantly conversations of like, has this guy overtaken LeBron, when they haven't, but you still have to have the conversation just for the sake of having something to talk about. At times it gets boring if you say the same guy is the best. Like, very clearly Mahomes is the best. And if he isn't the best and viewed as the best for the next like 10 years, there's something went wrong. Because the way I like to view it is like, he's lost in the playoffs 3 times. 2 of the times the guy he lost to is gone. And the 3rd time, he exercised those demons by beating him this year. If Burrow can't beat him anymore, who's going to? And that excites me, especially because, I think it's well documented how much I despise that son of a bitch in Tampa. So just any opportunity that Mahomes has to overtake him, like, it's great that Mahomes is on the Chiefs and going to overtake him, but just the fact that there's anybody that might overtake him excites me.
I think the best way I think the best for all parties is for Tom Brady to come and back up Patrick Mahomes next year.
I would be a fan of another team.
You would?
I'd like be a Niners fan until Brady was gone.
That means if Mahomes goes down and Tom Brady's your backup, you're still on track to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no. I am not. I cannot cheer for him.
That's actually insane. Okay, hypothetically speaking, if Tom Brady came and backed up Mahomes and won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, would you be more upset that Brady now added another ring to his legacy, or more happy that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl?
I'd probably be pissed, honestly, because like, okay, well, look at it this way: who was celebrating the Brady win in Tampa more? His fans in New England or like the Bucks fans? Like it didn't even feel like a Bucks. It didn't even feel like another Bucks Super Bowl. It just felt like a continuation of Brady's bullshit in New England. So it would be the same thing here. Like it would just be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Brady got another one. And it's kind of like you don't view the 2020 championship as a Lakers ring. It's another LeBron ring. It'd just be the same crap. And um,
I feel
yeah,
like it would also only add to the conversation that any quarterback can win in Andy Reid's offense, which we know isn't true.
yeah. I don't know. Just the sight of him in a Chiefs jersey would make me sick.
Yeah, I know. But it's fun to think about.
No, it's not.
I knew you would say that. So next I got on my list, I'm gonna Eagles defense. What did we learn about the Eagles defense in this game? And the reason I put this one down is because it felt like that so we knew the Eagles had a vaunted pass rush, and I was a believer in the Eagles pass rush, and I knew the offensive line of the Chiefs would have to step up to slow them down. But that's, I had more questions about the Eagles secondary because the Eagles had this number one passing defense in the NFL all year long. But a lot of people said, hey, they didn't really play anybody. And even the quarterbacks that were decent that they played all put up points. And for that reason, a lot of people were saying that the Eagles defense was fraudulent. And, I'm going to go ahead and take this one first. I'm just going to say, I think, what did we learn in Super Bowl 57? The Eagles defense was fraudulent. They went up against decent offenses all year, and those decent offenses put up 30-plus points every time. And people thought that was going to change against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who put up 38. I think last night just confirmed what people thought all season. The Eagles are still a really good team. They have a ton of talent. And I think if that game were to be played 10 times, I think the Eagles pass rush probably shows up more than half the time. But I think for the most part, the Chiefs wide receivers were just getting open all night, and the run game was also opening up. Eagles defense was fraudulent. Sorry. That's just how I feel.
You could say that about the secondary and linebackers. I think even though the pass rush never got to Mahomes, there were times where the pocket collapsed and they had to force him to make a quick decision. The pass rush forced some incompletions, and the pass rush was disrupting him despite never actually sacking him. There were times where I was stunned that he didn't get sacked. So I think the Eagles D line is fantastic. But
no disagreement there.
Yeah, but the secondary really didn't show up that much. And one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is a lot of people were talking about the Eagles couldn't cover Travis Kelce. Why is Travis Kelce always open? Yada yada. Well, it's because he's Travis Kelce. Who does cover Travis Kelce? I guess the Bucks did kind of with Devin White and Levante David, and how Todd Bowles set that up to try and neutralize him. But is it really a surprise? Because the dude doesn't run routes. The dude just says, hey, I'm going to do some wacky shit and get open. And then he does. How do you game plan against that? What as a defense are you supposed to do when he's not running routes? He's just getting open. And he's also the biggest and he's faster than your linebackers, and he's bigger than everyone in your secondary. What are you supposed to do? It's not like they're letting him get open. It's just he's as uncoverable as a player can be. So sitting there whining why does nobody cover Travis Kelce? You can't. He is a matchup nightmare, and he's one of the worst matchup nightmares in the history of the game, really. So I really don't blame anybody on the Eagles for that. It's just Kelce is that good. And this was so much was on the line for Mahomes there, and he just of course he was going to have a good game, and of course he's one of the best players all time already. So it's are you really surprised by the fact that he had a great game? Like, I think they would have had a good game against the 85 Bears. Like, I don't think it necessarily discredits the Eagles. I think it just shows how good the Chiefs' offense was. And, like, they had to get, like, the Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney touchdowns. They both had to get creative to score there. On the Sky Moore touchdown, the majority of that scoring drive was done off of the punt return. So that's not really on the Eagles' defense. And the Chiefs scored a defensive touchdown. So I think that, I don't know, I don't think it's a fair assessment to say that the Eagles' defense was fraudulent. The Eagles' defense definitely had their moments, but I think the Chiefs just were a better team, frankly, and I don't think
No,
that's. I don't
yeah,
think
they
they have
were.
anything to be ashamed of.
No, I mean they were the best. I still think last night would have happened no matter what. But as far as the Chiefs' offensive performance, but you just look at the Eagles' schedule and the competent teams that they did play put up points, and that didn't change last night. And I just, from the Eagles media side, I just heard a lot about how their defense was too much for the Chiefs and how the Chiefs didn't have the horses to run with the Eagles, and that just wasn't true.
That is Eagles media, so of course they're going to be slated towards the Birds.
You know, I do have a guy. I do have a guy at my work that is an Eagles fan, and sure, you know, it's funny. I heard all kinds of stuff today. First, I heard him blame the field for why the Eagles lost, as if the Chiefs don't play on the same exact field.
That's one of the things I really liked is the Eagles players in the post-game presser weren't bitching about the refs. They weren't bitching about the turf. They're just like, we lost. Like, not even Sirianni like blamed anything like that. Every player was just like, I mean, the Chiefs played on the same playing surface, and James Bradbury did hold, and even if he didn't, it shouldn't have come down to one play like that. And I really like that. You know, it's classy. You know, I don't really value class that much, but it's nice to see them not whine about the loss, because like I'll be the first to admit there were some plays, or there were some like ticky-tacky calls that definitely went our way in both the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship, but I don't care. Like, we won the Super Bowl, that's all that matters. Like, that's all I care about. I don't care.
I think I've been saying this. I've been saying this all day. I think people are more upset with the fact that the game essentially ended on a flag more than they're actually upset with the call. But people are trying to make themselves
That's what
upset
happened
with the call,
last year.
even though it was the correct call. Like in the AFC Championship game, yeah, you hate that the game had to basically end on a penalty, but because of that, people were trying to do mental gymnastics to somehow say it was not a late hit on Joseph Osai. And it's like, no, come on, what are we doing here? And that was a hold on James Bradbury. Yeah, it sucks it got called in basically the biggest moment of the game, but why are we complaining about the correct call?
Well, I mean, that happened last year in the Super Bowl. There was a really soft, like, I think it was a pass interference on Cooper Kupp. It was just a really like ticky-tacky soft call, and it let the Rams beat Bengals in the Super Bowl. So like, people are always going to complain about the refs when it's on the biggest stage. You know, they're really under a microscope. And
Thank you, Carl Sheffers.
Yeah, for all the shit that Chiefs fans give Carl Sheffers, he gave us a Super Bowl, so can't complain about him too much. And I won't complain about Ron Torbert again either.
Ron Torbert, my man came through in the AFC Championship game. I'm not even going to lie.
There were a few times in the Super Bowl where it's like, I think like Sue got like a hands to the face or something like that. And it's like, perfect. Carl Sheffers is out here bailing us out.
It's just funny, though, because you'll get the narrative that the refs are there to help the Chiefs, even though people forget just Carl Sheffers was awful for the Chiefs all regular season. And Ron Torbert last year in the regular season game against the Bengals was awful. Like, these guys are not necessarily pro Chiefs, but whatever.
Well, I'll stand by the fact that Mahomes winning the Super Bowl this year, especially with Brady retiring, is best for the league, because now like their old golden boy is gone, and him winning the Super Bowl supplants him as the new golden boy. And you know, sports leagues need faces, like the NBA needed Jordan, hockey needed Gretzky, and all that. So this really supplants Mahomes as the face of football right now. And I think if Roger, like, I don't think it's rigged, but I think the league definitely has narratives. Look at the Giants Commanders game, or the second Giants Commanders game of this past season.
The
Uh,
Terry McLaurin play.
yeah, the NFL, I feel like, wanted the Giants in the playoffs for ratings rather than the Redskins. But I feel like, I'm not saying it was rigged, but I feel like the NFL would have preferred Mahomes win the Super Bowl this year, especially with their old golden boy retiring, just because it's what's best for the league.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Next up, I'm gonna ask, what did we learn about the Chiefs defense in Super Bowl 57?
Nick Bolton's a dog.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna combine. I'm gonna combine both of these. What did we learn about the defense, and what did we learn about Steve Spagnuolo in Super Bowl 57? I feel like the two go hand in hand.
I mean, Spags is a big game D coordinator. Like, we've known this. He has 4 rings now. Like,
yeah, and I think what we learned about him is that I've been one of Spags' biggest criticizers. And I've been frustrated with the guy. I still think he makes mind-boggling personnel decisions, and I still think sometimes he likes to do some crazy things that I wouldn't do if I was a defensive coordinator, and the all-out blitzes on 3rd and long. And my God, the 3rd and longs, that we continue to be the worst defense in the league on 3rd and long. But you know what? Spags is just a winner, and I can't argue that. Like, he's a winner, and I think last night just once again is a sign, like, hey, when you're mad at Spags for that regular season loss in the middle of the season every year, like, just chill out a little bit. Like, this dude has won multiple Super Bowls with 2 different teams now.
I feel like the value that Spags brings can also be just in the aspect of knowing what it takes to get the job done. Like, the rings speak for themselves at one point, and when you have these, it's like you command respect. And the Super Bowl is a different animal. Like, Super Bowl 50 is a good example of that, where the Panthers went and they're the better team, and then they just got stopped. The Falcons couldn't finish the job in 51. Like, the team with experience in the game usually wins it. Like, very rarely will you get an anomaly like the Super Bowl 52 Eagles, where because, with like the media day and all the extra attention, all the lights are brighter than ever, a lot of teams fold there. And that was one of the things that made me feel really good coming into this game, was that the Chiefs were as calm as any team has ever been. And that includes, rookies like Isaiah Pacheco, obviously, that weren't not even just rookies, like guys like Juju and MVS, who weren't around for the last one, obviously. But it's the culture. Like, it's a winning culture. Like, there's a lot of guys in that building who were there for 54. They know what they need to do to get the job done, and they did it.
It's still largely the same core. Like we said about the Eagles going into this game, like, hey, the guys that were there in 2017 just really aren't there. Like, you got Kelsey and there's a few other guys, but it's a different head coach, it's a different quarterback, it's a different group of receivers. It's really a totally different defense. But this is largely the same core that won in 2019 for the Chiefs.
And it sounds so dumb to like invest as much thought into the entrance songs as I do, but like, Super Bowl 52 is my favorite non-Chiefs Super Bowl. One, because I hate Tom Brady, but 2, because like that Eagles team just had a certain fire to them. Like, with the whole underdog mentality, Nick Foles said that, like, I'm just going to go out there and play football. Whatever happens, happens. Alshon Jeffrey did not give a shit about, like, the media week and everything. He just wanted to play the game. And it was just kind of the attitude that team had. And when you saw them come out to Dreams and Nightmares, like, they came out, like, hungrier and, like, with more fire than I've ever seen a team come out of a locker room. And I think you saw just by the attitude that they had that you knew they were going to win that game when they did that. And then, like, they came out of this one, and I was just praying I didn't hear Dreams and Nightmares. And they didn't. It was like, I Just Want to Rock by Lil Uzi. And it just looked like a business trip to them. They didn't have that same fire they had. And the Chiefs really didn't either until the third quarter. And I think I saw Pacheco, Chris Jones, and Mahomes just like really yelling on the sideline and just showing energy and life. And that's when we came back and won the game. This is a very emotional game where you just need to put your head down and get the job done. As any like veteran who's been there could tell you that like the Super Bowl is just a different beast than any other game because of all that. So having a calming presence like Spags, who's won it 4 times, like you trust him to get it done at that point.
Yeah, and the defense didn't even have a great game last night, but
no, they didn't.
They got enough stops. Like they got enough stops to win the game. Like
when they had to show up, they did.
Yeah, like they forced the Eagles to punt on 4th and 2 in the second half. It was a critical point in the game. So,
and there were points like we were talking about the Eagles offense. There were points where you can't even blame the defense because like what the Eagles were doing was just like unstoppable. Like the Chiefs did everything they could to stop the QB sneak, and like you just can't. Like there's just nothing you can do about it. So like you can't even blame them for a lot of those plays. And like there were times where like they got it to 4th and short where a lot of teams would kick or punt at that point, and the Eagles just went for it. And of course they got it. So like there were multiple drives where like you can't blame them.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, what do we learn in Super Bowl 57 about the U.S. justice system that Chiefsaholic was able to watch this game and tweet afterward?
Homeboy's paying for his lawyers with his Super Bowl bet money.
I mean, I understand the dude was able to get out on bond. I just don't agree with it. I think it was BS that the bond got lowered for whatever reason. The dude almost actually went to Arizona for the Super Bowl, but he got his request to travel outside of state denied by the judge.
Hey, shout out Tulsa judge that did that. He knew exactly what he was doing 100%.
Yeah. Now, I give him props for that, but hey, why did you lower the bond for just enough for him to be able to get out? Like, come on. And then this dude's tweeting, acting like he doesn't know. He's just the complete lack of self-awareness.
He had a tweet about it.
He did. He said something like, hey, I know what's going on. No one knows that's what's going on more than I do.
I'm going to quote tweet it exactly.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm not quote tweeting it. Memes and jokes aside, please understand that nobody is more fully aware of what's currently happening than myself. I'm not running from it or ignoring it. That's all I'm at liberty to say. And it's like,
he ain't running from it, but he sure was running from the police after he stole money from that bank.
Buddy, you threatened to like murder a bank teller. And the next thing his next tweet is a retweet saying, praying that God opens a door that changes your life forever. Like, buddy, the vault door? Like, and he's out here still making like these cringy ass memes and edits that he makes. Like, knowing that he lives in his car, I can't help but just imagine the first thing he did when he got out of jail, because he's stuck in Oklahoma and the dude lives in his car. He's just sitting there on InShot, just like carefully editing these stupid like 6ix9ine edits of like him saying I'm back and crap. Like, I wonder how much time he spends on these, because we know he doesn't have a job. Which honestly, did we make an episode about Chiefsaholic individually? Because we could do that. Just chronicle.
We never actually did.
We should. That's a missed opportunity. We should have just read all the court documents and just, because it is the funniest thing ever, man, you have that picture of me with him, right?
Yeah.
For the record,
don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, for the record, Josh was there too. He just didn't get in the picture. There were 3 of us there when we met Chiefsaholic. But yeah, we've met the guy. But I got a picture with him.
Yeah, I mean, that was the AFC Championship game last year that we met him outside the stadium.
Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy. But yeah. Anyway, moving on. What did we learn? You know what? I don't really. This is kind of a rhetorical question. What do we learn in Super Bowl 57 about the Kelsey brothers? We learned that Travis Kelsey is the better brother.
Honestly, like at one point it kind of made me sad because like
Yeah, I
uh,
agree.
yeah, Travis was like, I'm just quoting, or no, I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing what Travis said afterwards. He was asked about Jason, and he's like, you joke about wanting to beat your brother at the highest stage, but looking over at that other sideline and seeing how devastated your best friend is, like, it's a weird feeling. And he's getting choked up as he's saying that, and it's like, damn, this isn't as fun as it was supposed to be. And I wanted to know what Jason said, um, and to Trav when he walked over to him. And I think in his press conference, he like, being a good brother, he's like, yeah, I'm proud of Trav and I'm happy for him. But I think because they walked up, dapped each other up, and Jason said something to him. And I read some article, I don't know the validity of it, but I think Jason said, "Fuck you, congrats."
Yeah,
Which seems pretty in character for them. But yeah, you got to feel for Jason there, especially since that was probably his last NFL game. But they still accomplished something extremely special, being the first brothers to play against each other in the Super Bowl.
it's at least nice that they both had the one, so it's not like Jason would be getting shafted out of 2 Super Bowl appearances or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's really a shame that we can never get Jason over to the Chiefs for all those years. I think it almost did happen the offseason that we ended up getting Creed Humphrey. And I
There's
mean,
at
that
least a
ended up working
conversation
out.
about it at one point.
Yeah, and it ended up working out for the Chiefs, but it does suck, and I feel bad for Jason. Like I don't care too much for most of the Eagles players, but Jason's one of them that gotta feel bad for him coming out of this game.
I feel for Jalen too. As a Bama guy, I love Jalen, and the dude balled out.
Well, I
Like,
actually I actually put him next. I put what did we learn about Jalen Hurts in Super Bowl 57? And I think we learned that he's legit and he was the MVP runner up for a reason.
yeah, I think, if the Eagles won, that goes down as like one of the best quarterback performances in Super Bowl history. Like, Jalen was just lights out. The only mistake he made was
And I
not
was
even
about
on
to
him.
and I was about to bring that up. The fumble that Nick Bolton scooped up and scored. That was a major, major turning point in the game for obvious reasons, but also because Jalen Hurts throughout the regular season did not turn the ball over. He was
Yeah.
very safe with the ball all season, hardly threw any interceptions, did not fumble the ball a lot. I mean, that was just so uncharacteristic of him. And it's not even like it got forced out. He just, something happened and the ball slipped out of his hands. He saw ghosts when Nick Bolton was running at him.
Yeah, I'm not gonna blame him for that. Didn't Nick Bolton like swat it out or something?
Yeah, I mean, like, he eventually came up on it and, forced it out. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, I can't blame Jalen for that.
Yeah. But it does suck for him too. But I'm willing to bet he'll be back at some point.
Yeah, he's definitely got the mentality to get back there because you need both the physical talent and just the mental strength to win a Super Bowl. And I think Jalen proved that he has both of those, and he could win it one day. And I hope he does. Frankly, like, how can you not like the guy?
Yeah, I mean, he does everything right. So I don't hate the guy. He's one of the more likable quarterbacks in the league. He doesn't say a lot. He was one of the Eagles players yesterday too after the game that they asked him about the penalty and he's like, "Look, I don't think the game is defined by one play."
Yeah, and he was just talking about self-reflection. He wasn't out there blaming any of his teammates for like not getting a stop. He wasn't out there blaming the refs. He was just thinking, what could I have done to change this game? And that's the type of guy Jalen has always been. He's never going to like pout or blame anyone else. He's just going to reflect on what he could have done, and he's going to go be better. And
He's just such a team guy. And
yeah,
you would know that if you paid attention to his career in college at all. I mean, yeah, he transferred to Oklahoma his last year. He did not want to leave Bama. He really did not.
nah.
But
Saban literally said like, Jalen, you should go to Oklahoma. It's what would be best for your career. And like, like him and Saban literally sat down and discussed what would be his best move from there on out. And it's so funny to me when people say like, "Oh, Bama did him dirty like that," and Bama didn't do him dirty. And like
They even before he transferred, they ultimately gave him the shot to go out there when Tua was struggling to win the SEC championship.
yeah,
So
like Jalen's great. Jalen's a Bama legend. He always will be. Like I don't care what anyone says.
yeah, but that's all I got from my list of what did we learn in Super Bowl 57. I think we learned a lot, and we learned a lot of good things about the Chiefs, and now hopefully they're en route to a dynasty.
One more, just one more.
I mean, well, you know what? I'll add one more before we wrap up. Actually, what did we learn about Brett Veach in Super Bowl 57? I think we learned that he, you know, we questioned a lot of his moves. I think he definitely had a rough offseason before the 2021 offseason. I think a lot of his moves were unpopular heading into this year, but the dude deserves his flowers. I think we had a record or something for most rookie snaps played by a Super Bowl winner. So,
Well, I remember a quote. I think it was like by Bud Grant or something like that. But it was Super Bowls are won on day 3 of the draft. Like if you can find contributors, you don't even need great players, but if you can find contributors on day 3 of the draft, then you are going to compete for championships because those are picks that people take for granted and picks that people trade for Cam Irving. And you just need to hit on those. And if you hit on those are basically really good young players that you get for free because a large percentage of those guys don't even make the team, right? And Jalen Watson and Isaiah Pacheco were 2 7th-round rookies that started in the Super Bowl and played well. Like, props to Veach for those 2 picks alone. And Karlaftis was a starter and played well. And Sky Moore got a touchdown. And, like, it was a great rookie class. Like, I think the only guys that weren't good were, like, Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson. And that's an extremely high percentage hit rate for a draft class.
Darian Kennard too, but I mean, like
I forgot about him. Yeah,
but I mean, you still had like 8 or 9 rookies out there playing significant snaps, and like even Joshua Williams. Like I know me and you aren't like huge on him.
Well,
but
he sucks, but
but even in the playoffs, like he wasn't sticking out like a sore thumb.
I mean, he got the job done, but he's still. I wouldn't classify him a good football player.
No, not at this time.
But Jalen Watson made up for it. If Joshua Williams was the 7th-round draft pick and Jalen Watson was the 4th-round draft pick, nobody's saying anything. So, and I usually hate saying things like that, but he did get 2 good rookie corners in the draft class. And I don't think anybody expected Jalen Watson to really be what he was, but he was one of the better rookie corners in the league and a very solid starter on a Super Bowl team. So props to him.
Yeah, and I mean, Veach is going to have a lot of draft picks once again to play with this offseason. And he's also got a bunch of cap space, most likely, because they're probably going to move on from Clark. They're going to figure out what to do with Orlando Brown. Chris Jones will get extended. So,
but we need to trade Chris Jones.
Yeah, well,
fuck that.
That was always stupid. And Mahomes, they didn't even restructure him last offseason like a lot of people thought they would, which means that they could do it this offseason. They paid Mahomes a lot of money last offseason, which was probably smart because they ended up going young and getting cheaper. And they're like, let's just use this year to pay off some of Mahomes' contracts so we don't restructure it right now. And now if they want to do it this year, they can, and they would have a lot of money to use. But we'll see what they do. I don't think they'll make all those moves, but I definitely think they'll make most of them.
Clark gone. Please, Clark gone. Please. I don't care what he did this postseason. I hate the guy. Give me a new pass rusher. Please, Clark gone. I've been waiting for this since he got here, basically.
I'm just going to say I think he's going to be back on a cheap
Shut up, Josh. No, honestly, I feel like if we cut him, there's going to be another team that wants to pay him a lot of money.
Maybe.
Just he's one of those players like some other fan base, like I don't know. Let's say he signs with pick a team, Josh. Chicago. Let's say he goes to Chicago. All the Bears fans are going to be like, "Oh my God, he's 3 sacks away from being the all-time sack leader. We got a really good one." But like those numbers are incredibly inflated, and then they're going to be disappointed and act surprised when he sucks. Like,
And a team like Chicago doesn't make the playoffs, so it's not even like you're getting the best part of Frank Clark.
well, I mean, I think Chicago will make the playoffs next year, but yeah, I just think that I feel like if he does get cut, the money somewhere else is going to be too much for him to turn down. Just because, like, especially with how this free agency class is weak, and like that, it's kind of the Super Bowl tax almost. I think of like guys like Trey Flowers on the Patriots, who like Trey Flowers was a really good pass rusher on the Patriots, and then he went to I think it was Detroit on a big deal and sucked. There's a lot of Patriots players who did that. And I think Frank Clark is going to be a perceived really good player that gets cut, and somebody is going to pay top dollar for him and get a GM fired, basically.
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah. Also, shout out Brett Veach for trading a 3rd-round pick mid-season for my guy Kadarius Toney, who the Chiefs do not win the Super Bowl without last night.
Yeah, he showed up.
I know you're a huge Toney fan. So
yeah, he showed up.
I had told you, just if he's healthy, he's a factor.
I mean, we won the Super Bowl, so I can't complain.
He's just rarely healthy is the things, but hopefully that'll change next year. We'll see.
I mean, the Sammy Watkins effect, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, if he plays in the Super Bowl and helps us win it, whatever,
For sure. But man, that's all I got. Perfect timing, really, because we're at about an hour, which is perfect time to end it. Got everything I wanted to talk about, but did you have anything else you wanted to
add? No, other than a brief mention of Devontae Smith is always open and go routes late in championship games. I just thought that was funny. But that's it.
Well, there you go. Did you want to link any of your social media or anything?
Follow me on Twitter, Brady Reeks, and YouTube, Prime Connor.
Yeah.
I haven't uploaded in like 6 months, but whatever.
Well, didn't you say you were working on something?
I was planning on working on something.
Well, I mean, if the fans want to see more of you, I mean, we got Battlehawks football in like a week, so
are we gonna be covering this on here or that on here?
Yeah, I was planning on it. So
perfect.
All right, so there you go. That's all for Prime Counter tonight. That's all of me tonight. If you're still watching, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And we will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.